Welcome to Hobby Clubhouse with a 3-way review of Gundam Hathaway kits in celebration of the Japanese premiere of Gundam Hathaway in theaters. So make sure to check out the HGUC Penelope and the HGUC Xi reviews if you haven't already. This review is for the Model Comprehend High Grade 1144 Xi Gundoom. And no, the name on the thumbnail wasn't spelled wrong. This is a non-licensed off-brand kit of the Xi Gundam made in mainland China. And that's some half-hearted attempt to make the name legally distinct. The best kind of distinct. Now, this isn't a clone of a Bandai kit like Daban models are, nor is it a rip from resin kits which some Chinese-made kits are. This is in fact a completely new kit with original molds, though it does borrow a lot of ideas from the Gundam Fixed Figuration figure, as we'll see later. But first, let's talk about the company that made this, Model Comprehend. Officially, they call themselves MC Model, so technically the name is Model Comprehend Model. Yeah, they really should have thought about that name a little bit more. They made a number of things that weren't covered by Bandai in their time, like an SD Deep Striker, which still isn't a thing yet, and both the Xi Gundam and the Penelope. And they had some kind of relationship to Dragon Momoko, which is the much more well-known company among Gundam modeling circles, and Model Comprehend promoted Dragon Momoko releases on their Facebook page. And what also lends more credence to this connection is back in 2017, when the Chinese government shut down Dragon Momoko for intellectual property violation, surprise, Model Comprehend also suddenly vanished as well, so both companies are no longer around anymore, on the surface anyway. Dragon Momoko is still sort of around in the form of Fire Dragon, and the Model Comprehend people actually put out a new pre-built figure in 2020, but also under a different name. Also, the Penelope and the Xi from them both got one mysterious round of re-release around 2020 as well, but the company itself has no public presence anymore, with only the Facebook page left, which hasn't been updated, surprise, since 2017. So for a while, people thought that the Xi and other Model Comprehend kits were no longer in production, so there was speculation that they'd be worth a lot, but not really. They're certainly very rare, but they aren't especially valuable as far as I can see as of this video. The Xi Gundoom was released on July 19, 2014, and it doesn't have an official price, but mine here still has its price sticker, and it was sold for 250 Hong Kong dollars, which comes to a bit under 3,900 yen in 2014. The box illustrator of course isn't named, but this is the same person who drew all the boxes for all Model Comprehend kits, whoever that person is. The box measures 44 by 34 by 10 centimeters, so it's pretty big. The box does have a printed backside as well, featuring the finished kit and boasting a bit about how this does have a full inner frame, which we're going to take a closer look at in a bit. The hexagon effects here aren't just photoshopped, and the kit actually includes these effect parts as well, which is a nice little extra for the kit. The short side of the box has the same illustration and nothing else that we haven't seen already. The long side gives us studio shots of the painted kit and a bunch of info in traditional Chinese rather than simplified Chinese, so it seems like they wanted to avoid the packaging looking a little too obviously unlicensed, not that it helps. The other side gives us a reminder of its accessories and some basic labels for what each thing is. So this box is actually an outer box, and the kit is housed inside a cardboard inner box, which helped protect my kit when this whole thing got water damaged a long time ago. Inside this inner box, we get the Xi spread across the crazy 18 runners, with the first 9 here, and then the next 8 right here. And then we get 4 clear runners for an included display stand, and all the display arms and the effect parts, and then the polycaps. We get a sheet of foil stickers, with this square one here strangely for the front of the crotch that's already white, and then these 2 white ones that go onto the back skirt. These ones here go onto the sides of the forearms, and then these go into the sides of the leg armor, one on each side, on each leg. Then these go onto the sides of the feet, on each feet. This white one goes onto the red surface of the shield. This white one goes onto the middle of the back skirts. And these 2 yellow ones go onto the front skirts. These 2 go onto the back skirt. These yellow ones here go onto the back of the armor on the shoulders. Then these 2 go onto the ones on the front. This green one here goes onto the lower part of the beam rifle, and this one goes onto the upper aiming sensor. We also get a black circle for the mouth of the barrel, and then this sticker for the front section of the gun. We get 2 pairs for the eyes, one with a black lining and one without that. This green sticker is for the back of the head. And there's a surprise in the box with this sheet of water slide decals with a lot of warning symbols and various markings. And I won't be going through the locations of each of these or else we're going to be here all day. And guess what? There's a second sheet of water slide decals, this one much bigger. This handles all the fancy patterns and the decorations you saw in the studio shots, so they have everything you need for a fancy build right out of the box. The instructions come as a stapled booklet with the first pages showing off the finished kit and the funnel missiles, which they coyly don't call by that name. They indulge themselves a little bit more and use the next 2 pages for some more studio shots. The beam saber here has a yellow beam, but they did correct this at some point and the kit comes with the correct pink beams. Then we have the entirety of the assembly instructions until at the very end, which we get a few more studio shots. They really did try to make this more than just a boring assembly instructions booklet, so I do appreciate the effort, though it is a bit of a shame that they don't do much more than giving you the names of things and showing you a picture of it. So about an hour later, the inner frame is done here, which can stand all on its own like this. It doesn't look as breathtaking as many master grade ones, mostly because it is a basic and boxy structure. It has mostly long rectangular surfaces that are broken up by some slopes like the one on the chest and on the ankles, and you don't get the intricate layering and cutaway windows that master grade frames would have. But I think it's not too fair to pick on this frame so much because it is extra engineering that they really didn't have to do, but they wanted to show off a little bit and impress all of us, and I think it's a good effort. And here's a quick look at the joints of the frame. But before we get to the full fat completed form, we do have this odd intermediate form with all this armor that's not yet installed, so what's the deal? If we bring in the HGUC Penelope in its Odysseus Gundam form, you may notice that they look quite similar. And this is because the kit borrows a lot from the Gundam fixed figuration Xi Gundam, which I mentioned at the beginning, which is also Penelope at the same time. Yeah, for that figure you can strip it down and dress it up into whichever MS you prefer. The Penelope kit that the Model Comprehend later made did use all these parts, so they did save some money this way, but as a consumer, what we get is a strange halfway Odysseus Gundam here that's gonna cosplay as the Xi Gundam. And finally, that gives us the full fat Xi, and it's quite surprising that once those parts are on, you never actually suspect that the body inside is actually half an Odysseus Gundam. Unsurprisingly, the aesthetics also follow the Gundam fixed figuration, so it's mostly a Katoki redesign. This design looks a lot less alien and far less hostile to a modern Gundam fan than the original design, and it tries to be more stylistically sensible, even though it still looks rather crazy with things jutting out everywhere. But maybe this will help give us some context. Here is the HGUC Xi Gundam, which is a painted gift from MJ 2005 Gundam, so super special thank you to him, and do go check out his channel with kit reviews and MS profiles, links are in the description. But immediately you can see how the Katoki design shies away from that wide and stout look of the HG kit that's far closer to the original novel's design. The Model Comprehend kit looks more heroic with the smaller shoulders and the increased height. It's still very wide, but the long legs offset that width by a whole lot, and the Katoki design really doesn't have the stomach to keep the old look, which looks like a big fat triangle. And now that we have them side by side, I think the Katoki version actually has a little less character and a little less flavor. I mean, sure, it's prettier, but maybe that's a problem. It's not ugly enough. But ugly or not, let's have a closer look at the kit, starting right here, where the panels swing open to reveal a stock of funnel missiles that are all nicely part separated in white. The shape of the panel is cleverly styled and you really won't notice this opening hatch at all when it's closed. Now you might think, hey, I never knew about this. There were missile pods on the shoulders? And you're right, there aren't supposed to be. The designers here took some liberty and added this by themselves, which is kinda cute. It's fine by me since it's quite well done, and you can actually ignore it if you really don't like it. And to go with the missile pods, we do have this white funnel missile, and we get 2 of them in the box, and on each one, we have a hole to use them with a display stand, which we'll look at later, but the hole goes all the way through and it looks kinda ugly. And there's another problem. These funnel missiles are huge. There's no way they'd come out of the missile pod on the shoulder, and there are no other obvious places where they'd be fired from, so the designers got this detail a little bit wrong. It's nice that they wanted to give us something more, but it's too bad it looks off. And continuing with some more details, all around the kit, we get gray inner panels like the flight system here, and you don't get ugly empty spaces on this kit for the most part. and most of the inner sides are lined with gray panels like this, which is great. And something really important to note here is that the whole kit is made of ABS plastic. This stuff is harder than the polystyrene that we usually get with Bandai kits, but that's why a lot of mainline kits clatter and rattle and they squeak a lot. If you're a builder, you'll also have to plan your build around this material, so do take note. And since this kit was made in China and it existed mostly outside of the law, this thing has sharp edges everywhere, which they all look great, but I got poked and I got stabbed by mistake by this thing many times when building the kit. Safety flags be damned, so handle this with care if you have one and you're gonna build one. And speaking of hands, we get two pairs with this kit. A pair of articulated hands, and then a pair of fixed hands with swappable fingers. The first here are these articulated hands with a thumb on a ball joint, and the index finger also. Then the other fingers are molded together. The hand has a slit on it that works with all of its weapons, so this helps avoid the biggest problems of these sorts of hands where they don't grip the weapon strong enough. The fixed hands have this set of fingers here to make an open palm, which are always appreciated and always very expressive. And the sculpt here is actually quite respectable. Then we have these closed fingers, which you can swap in and make a closed fist. This is close to what you get from many MG kits, and this is likely where the designers got their ideas from. So now that we've seen some of the styling of the kit, let's look at some of the weapons, starting with the Xi custom beam rifle, which is nicely color separated in blue, and white, and gray. The mouth of the barrel is flat like this, so maybe you'd want to drill a hole into it to make it look a little bit more sensible. Then there's also this odd protruding little detail on the handle here, which I almost cut off because I thought it was something for injecting plastic. But it really is a part of the design, and the HG kit has this as well. And here you'll notice that the HG's beam rifle is quite a bit larger and it's mostly in gray. The beam rifle of this kit does follow the Katoki design in its relative size. The handle slots nicely into the articulated hand, and once it's in, it stays in place nicely. Next up, we have the shield here, which is beautifully colored in red and white, and the small vents here are done in gray. And at first glance, you think this shield is pretty nice, and it is. But if we bring in the HG one, you'll immediately notice how much more primitive this sculpt is on this shield that makes it look flat and comparatively less interesting. And it really makes you appreciate the kind of artistry and the kind of work that goes into Bandai's kits. And if we look at the back here, they do share an interesting gimmick where both their connections run along a rail. The one for our shield here works well enough, but you do have to be careful not to break the mounting frame off the peg. The shield is connected onto this part of the arm where you pull off this little panel here, and I actually cheated here and I never put this panel on because there's no way you're gonna ever take this thing off again. The friction is just way too strong, which seems to be a case for many of these Chinese made kits. The entire shield mounts onto the holes here, and then the shield stays in place really well. Like way too well. Because right after I filmed this part, my shield broke when I tried to take it out. I can repair it just fine, but it still happened and it still sucks. If you just keep the shield on, it won't be a problem, but clearly this is an oversight in the design. The last weapon we have are the beam sabers here, which are stowed on these racks on the shoulders. All you need to do is pull the handles right off the rack. It takes one of these two styles of beam parts that we get. One of them is the more traditional style with a mostly rounded shape, and this other one is a more wavy and irregular one that's also longer. The HG kit has green beams, and this is a new revision because the Xi always had pink beams before in video games, so this kit wasn't wrong in its time in 2014. The other blade is more aggressive and more powerful looking, and you can freely pick whichever style you want for your mobile suit. This blade's connection is really tight. You see a theme here? So you're gonna have to be careful with it. Now let's look at the flight mode, which isn't nearly as complicated as the HGUC version. You first put the two beam saber racks into their storage positions like this. The front armor flips up on its joint, and then you do the same thing for the one on the back. You lift up the wings here on the back, which actually have a very wide sweep. You can lift up these pointy panels at the chest upwards to go with the transformation. And then you flip down these wings on the side of the legs, and you're already done. It's a quick and simple transformation, if you can even call it that. In universe, it's for the Minovsky flight system, but in reality, this is probably more useful for posing the kit and isn't really that interesting as a gimmick itself, but it's here and it does what it's supposed to without any fuss. And changing over to a black background, this is a good chance to talk about the custom base that's included with the kit. It's made entirely in clear plastic, which sadly isn't as high quality as we usually get with other makers, and the plastic is a little bit cloudy. The mounting piece at the top ends with a 3mm hole, which seems a little too small for a kit this big. There are notches cut in here so you can lock it into fixed positions without it slipping. It's overall a very sensible design, but the friction comes back to haunt us and it can be pretty hard to remove this part up here unless you wiggle it around a little bit. But the base has some additional functions with these arms right here that can swing out on each side. This one here has 4 3mm holes, and this one here has 3 3mm holes. You also get these notches on the back right here that gives you even more positions to mount things on the display. And to use those holes, we have these parts here that make up the articulated arms. The one on the left here is what holds anything you want to display, and they go with any one of these two parts on the right hand side here. So you can make an arm with a small 3mm peg at the base here like this, or you can have a thicker peg at the bottom like this. The thin peg goes onto the swing out feet at the bottom here, and the thick peg goes onto the notches on the back here with a bit more strength for a sideways mount. You get 6 of each arm segment, so you can combine them into 6 arms of any type that you like. And it is a little bit of a convoluted design, and even though it works, it could have been done with much less waste. But to go along with those arms, we get these hexagonal effect parts which have this neat layered construction that you can reconfigure with all those pegs that you see. I think there's supposed to be some sort of eye field type of thing, but the Xi doesn't have an eye field, so this is another one of those original things that the designers added. And again, it's fine as long as they put in the actual work to give us more stuff that is kinda cool here, even if it's non-canon, because, at worst you can just ignore it and put it away. The effects parts can be mounted onto several spots, and I picked just one here as an example. This way you can have it on display like this, though it'll look much better if you paint it with a clear color like clear blue, or else it's gonna be a little hard to see like here. Onto the articulation. Starting from the top, the head moves up quite a bit, and down a good bit as well. It doesn't turn to the side a whole lot, and it quickly hits the armor on each side. The armor bits on the chest here moves upwards as we saw earlier. The arms swing outwards only a little bit, limited by the shoulder armor. They swing forwards until they hit the front armor of the flight unit, and backwards the same until it hits that part on the backside. The biceps allow the arms to rotate a full circle. The elbows bend only 90 degrees despite it being a double joint. The hands can be adjusted on their ball joint, and they can rotate around a full circle. The waist dips forward this much, and it bends backwards this much. It only turns side to side a very limited amount. The front skirt armor flips up only to about 45 degrees, and the side skirts go up to about the same. The back skirts surprisingly do move, and they can go up nearly 180 degrees. The legs swing outwards to about 70 degrees. They can rotate along the thighs freely. They kick forwards this much, limited by that front skirt. And then the knees have a really nice fold close to 180 degrees, hindered a little by the bulky leg armor. The feet swing upward this much, and they swing backwards this much. They go side to side this much. Overall, the articulation is okay, but it's slightly below average. The arms are far more limited than the legs in the range of movements, and they become the limiting factor when they can look quite boring unless you really try to work around them. I don't think people expect crazy articulation from most third-party kits. We like the alternative looks for the MSs and their different stylings like the Xi has here, but it's not too surprising to anyone if they don't have elaborate folding joints with sliding mechanisms. You'll feel limited in poses that you can do with the Xi here, but the big and pointy MSs don't lend themselves to extreme poses anyway, so it's a flaw that hurts a little bit less. For size comparisons, here's our lower end benchmark, the entry grade RX-78. And then, here's our upper end benchmark, the high-grade new Gundam. You don't often see this here, but the new Gundam is dwarfed by the Xi, and the RX-78 only reaches about half its height. It really was a novelty at the time because we always wondered how big Hathaway's Flash's MS would be next to other 1144 kits, and Model Comprehend answered our prayers back in 2014, way before Bandai did. And here it is once again next to the HGUC Xi, which as we saw before isn't as tall as the Model Comprehend kit, but the HG kit is a lot wider, and it fills up that space with a lot more bulk, so the Chinese Xi looks a little bit thin and lanky in comparison. And here it is next to the HGUC Penelope, and it's actually basically just as tall if you don't count the bird head, though it's not nearly as bulky. It was a nightmare fitting these two into the frame of my white background here for this shot, but it was worth it. I think very few things in the world can make a Xi look small, but Penelope is one of those few things. With all that said, here's the Hobby Clubhouse 3-point verdict on the Model Comprehend high-grade 1144 Xi Gundoom. Number 1. It's third party for better or for worse. There is nothing subpar about the quality of this kit. It's sharply molded, and the colors are great, and it has all the bits and functions you'd expect from the Xi Gundam kit. It even comes with waterslide decals, which Bandai for the most part won't do. But the friction on this kit is also way too strong, and you get this a whole lot in third-party kits. I had to shoot this video very carefully because remember that inner frame we saw earlier? There's no way I can show you that again without breaking a lot of the pegs. Bandai spoils us with some top-notch engineering, and we don't notice just how precise everything is until it's not there. This is a well-made third-party kit, but it is a third-party kit nonetheless. And number 2, MC Model does what Bandai didn't. In 2014, no one in their wildest dreams would think that Bandai would make a Xi or a Penelope. They're big and they're really ugly, and only Gundam hipsters like to loudly announce that they like Hathaway's Flash because it's not in the filthy mainstream. So we should appreciate that for over 7 years, this kit gave us Xi in 1/144 scale when Bandai gave us a cold shoulder. This kit isn't a very sensible product, and it's exactly the sort of stuff that only shaded, unofficial third-party companies could sell and make a profit, in 2014 anyway. Of course, now it's sort of one-up by the crazy HGUC kit, but until this came around, the Model Comprehend Xi Gundam really was something quite special. And number 3, it's styled differently. Sure, the HGUC kit is the better kit because it dares to capture the Xu's original really strange and alien look, but I don't think that this makes this Chinese kit obsolete, because still there are many people who like this Katoki styling a little bit more, and so there's still good reason to get this kit if you really do prefer this look, and maybe you want the bragging right of having a Xi that isn't the same as the one everyone else has, but it's going to be a bit of a challenge trying to find one though. So that's a review of the Model Comprehend Xi Gundam. I know it's strange to review something that technically isn't in production anymore, but I know a lot of people will be curious how this kit compares with the HGUC, and short of hunting down one of these and buying one for yourself, seeing it here is the next best thing. Thank you so much for watching. Come look us up on social media with updates on upcoming videos and sneak peeks at future projects, links are in the description below. Or hang out here some more with one of these other videos. But before you go, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to be notified of new videos from Hobby Clubhouse, and I'll see you next time.